Are you feeling anxious, overwhelmed, and disenchanted by life, the universe, and everything? Maybe you're frustrated with the talking heads who say one thing and do something completely different. Yeah, me too. Welcome to People Watching, a podcast where we figure out what it looks like to become the role model we've always wanted by talking with real people who found real role models in their own lives. Together, we cut through all the noise and identify better sources of hope, creativity, and wisdom as we explore how we learn to make decisions about the kind of life we want to live. So join us. Let's do some people watching. This is your host, Megan J. Robinson. Welcome to People Watching. My guest today is Dr. Kandyce Thomas, a chiropractor in the Charlotte metro area. And she's probably the most consistent, regular relationship I've had in a long time because I see her every month. One of the things that I love about her is she's so knowledgeable and she does such a great job of educating people on health and wellness. And especially she is a business owner, a small business, and she has run that business for 10 years. While being a single mom of 2 teenage daughters and learning how to take care of herself, take care of her family, and pass on the things that are really important to her. I absolutely loved this conversation. It was fascinating to listen to her talk about intergenerational relationships with great-grandparents, grandparents, her parents, siblings, cousins, and now how she is teaching her daughters to have those relationships. It was an incredible experience to hear her talk about her grandfather and the lessons that she's learned in perseverance and resilience and continuing to move forward no matter what, and how it wants to pass that on to not just her children, but also to show others what that looks like. It was such a powerful lesson in influence that good role models can have and that we can have on each other. I hope that you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did.
And it's fun.
So I was thinking, I have probably seen you every month for almost 10 years now, which is, I know, which is like one of the most consistent regular relationships I've ever had in my life.
Oh, guys, I'm glad to be that person for it.
So normally I say welcome to the studio and it's just my guest and I in our respective recording locations, but literally welcome to the studio.
Thank you. I love it. Just keep on it.
Thank you. Thank you. So one of the things I like to do to open our conversation is to share some pop-up rules that help shape our conversation for each other and for our listeners. If you just want to read to the line, I can start. Be present as fully as possible. This is a space to acknowledge our doubts, fears, and failings as much as it is a space to share our joys, convictions, and successes.
All right. So I'm going to ask open, honest questions. If we're not sure what the other meant in the question or statement, ask. It gives us a chance to clarify or rephrase. Ask questions that we genuinely don't know the answer to. Surprise is a great catalyst of insight.
Whatever we share is by invitation, not obligation. If either of us is not comfortable pursuing a topic, let's just say I prefer not to share. Thank you.
Silence is also a partner in our conversation. Feel free to take a moment to reflect without immediately filling the space with words. Leave room for the inner teacher to whisper to.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
One of the things that I love to do in these conversations is just really hear about the journey that's led you to who you are today and the things that stand out as meaningful to you, that you feel have shaped you or influenced you, and that you just think about when you think about your life.
What led me to where I am now? I love being in a space where I'm able to help people. I've always been that way. Growing up, I would go to my grandparents' house quite a bit, and my grandma would get up at 4:30 in the morning. She's already watered the garden by 5. Then she's in the house cleaning until about 6:30 or 7. And then you wake up and you start smelling pancakes around at 8:30 or 9. But I just love being over there helping her with all that stuff. She was always just busy doing things. And then my granddad, he collected like scrap metal and cans all the time. So he was walking every day doing something. And I loved being that person, especially when I got into high school with the vehicle, to take them to the recycling center to get those metals and cans turned in. And he got money for that. I'm like, oh, this is nice. I just always loved helping people like that. But then the big catalyst for me, especially when I got into healthcare, was when I was 11. And my mom we just built a house and we got cable, which was big, and HBO was on. And there was this special about the AIDS epidemic. And I just remember seeing how many people had passed away from the disease and what they were trying to do to eradicate the issue. And I remember writing to my mom and saying, I want to help somehow. And that was at 11 years old because I felt that the need was going to be there at some point and would always be there for the mass of people that had this disease. And I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm going to be an epidemiologist. Okay. I'm going to be an immunologist. I'm going to do all the things that's going to help. And of course, as time went on and I got older, I'm like, okay, what else can I do? And I thought about wanting to be a pediatrician. Okay. Because I love being around kids until they cry. And then I realized that, right, I don't like to hear kids cry and and I'm like, that won't work. Then it turned into wanting to be an OBGYN. But thought, don't know how I want to do that forever. I just knew at some point, some capacity, I wanted to be a doctor and help people. Okay. Someone said, what about chiropractic? And I said, that might work because I don't like blood. I don't like needles. So what kind of doctor does that? And I volunteered with a chiropractor this summer, right before I went off to college, I believe. And I saw a lady walk in tears, bent over in a lot of pain. Within about 20, 25 minutes being in the room with Dr. Williams, a chiropractor in my hometown, she came out standing up straight and smiling. And I'm like, that's it. That's what I want right there. Yeah. And that just led me on my journey to go to Xavier University in Louisiana. And then I went off to Life University for chiropractic school, finished at Sherman College in Spartanburg, and became a chiropractor in 2004.
Okay. Yeah. I can sympathize with what kind of doctor can I be because I don't like seeing things outside that are supposed to be inside.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I do that.
My family was like, why don't you get into some kind of medical field? And I'm like,
no, like it was weird for me because I loved watching like late at night they would have documentaries on or either shows with surgeries. And I could sit and watch that for hours. I'm able to run in the morning watching that stuff. But I think the difference was as long as the person is sedated and not crying and in pain, I can do it. And when it's like the emergency room where they're coming in and they're screaming, they're crying, and I'm like, oh no, because I'm feeling that pain with them.
Oh,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can see what you say as far as the inside being outside.
That's not how it works. That's not it. Yeah. You know, I just love how you saw this proactivity towards life from your grandparents and everything. Was that just your whole family? Was that just your grandparents, or was that just like your community? It just feels like a way of life that you don't see that often anymore.
Right. Yeah, definitely don't see it much more now. It was, I think all of it was family, my grandparents for sure, community. Like for instance, my mom, she was a teacher for 30 years, and I used to call our house the Haven because I felt like when kids got in trouble, they migrated to our house. And my mom was the one to heal, to pacify, to soothe, to be there for a lot of kids. But it was just nice to see that my mom was that person for them. Yeah. That could placate and soothe the issues that they had, whether it was school or home life. She was there. And so I think that brought a lot of compassion into the house for us. And I was able to understand what empathy meant when it came to all the issues that people were having. So I think it was just a natural thing. It was always around me. And I went to a very diverse school. and just saw situations where people always help one another. They could tell us what you look like, where you came from. It was just, I don't know, I just really liked our neighborhood, our community.
Yeah.
And then, of course, to have it in my home with my mom and then to see it with my grandparents.
Yeah. Yeah. And I seem to remember you telling me before the grandparents that you were talking about, these the ones that own the ball field? Or is that?
No, so it's another set of grandparents.
Oh, okay.
The grandparents that I grew up like half a mile down the street are my mother's parents.
Okay.
My father's parents were in Bluffton, South Carolina, which is, I guess, maybe 20 minutes away from where we were.
Okay.
And they were awesome too.
Yeah.
Just because grandparents on both sides. Cool. But those grandparents, my granddad, he played, I guess, like a minor league baseball.
Okay.
And with him playing baseball, we had a field that was right next to the house. And so my grandma was like the store, the general store. Everyone would go over to her house and, hey, we need some fish or we need some soda or whatever. And she would just dig in her little cooler in that garage and get all that stuff. And they had this open fire pit that they would roast oysters on for people in the neighborhood, all this stuff. But yeah, my granddad had the baseball field there, and it was just so fun just going over there and hanging out as kids with my siblings.
Yeah.
And I don't know, we just felt like the superstar of the neighborhood.
Well, yeah, I don't know, ball field.
It was just so much fun. But everyone in the community knew my grandparents. And they would just, they loved them. And my grandparents, they loved to serve the community.
Okay.
So I just saw it on both sides.
Yeah. I mean, I just keep getting this image of the ball field players of the ball field, like dressed up like a league of their own.
Right. Yes. And that's how I guess the uniform looked.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Was there like a faith element in your growing up? What's your faith journey been like?
It's been all over. I remember my mom saying I was baptized Methodist and like a baby, like, I don't know.
That's nice.
But then I think going to church with my grandma, it was a lot of Baptist churches or Pentecostal. And I never really paid attention to all of that. I just knew it was faith-based and it was God. And as long as there was a higher power, you're good. So I never paid attention to different denominations.
Sure.
But I just knew that there was something good in all of it. That was like the underlying purpose of it all. So so it's, I guess now as I'm older, I still don't pay attention to the different denominations. I just look at what's good out of every denomination that there is out there. Are you serving a good purpose? Are you paying it forward? Are you helping your neighbor? It fits in that. I'm okay.
Yeah. Which would be nice if more denominations thought that way.
Of course, there. Yeah. Left of my predisposition. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I know you grew up in Beaufort, South Carolina, and you mentioned going to college in Louisiana, and that was New Orleans, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. How was that?
So fun. That partied really hard the first year, like her year or two.
I feel like if you're in New Orleans, you have to.
It's Mardi Gras capital.
Yeah.
It was really fun. I chose Xavier because it was like 95, 96. I remember reading the Essence magazine and African American Black. And I saw that at that time, they were #1, Xavier University, for getting Blacks into medical school. And I knew, of course, I'm like, I think I want to go there.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's where I'm going. That's the only school I applied to. And that's how I've always been. I only applied to one.
Yeah.
And I prayed real hard. And then got there. But I went to Xavier, and that even in itself was hilarious because I remember on campus and I saw these nuns. I'm like, who are the nuns? Entrance.
Xavier should have been a clue.
It was not a clue at all. It was literally, give me the medical school, I'm applying, I got in.
Yeah.
And I get there, and it's like all these nuns. And literally, I think 2 or 3 days in, I said, okay, the nuns aren't leaving. They're still here. What's happening? Is there a convention or something? And I was like, oh, wait, this is a Black Catholic university. Had no idea. Literally a fly. I just.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was hilarious to find out after.
Yeah.
But still was great. But yeah, New Orleans is like a world in itself. It's so very different from what I knew. I'm coming from the Gullah Geechee culture to now this Creole culture, which is very different. But I liked occasion there.
Sure.
They're very different. And I loved it. But yeah, it was a party town. But I will say on Sundays, I went nowhere. My freshman year, I don't really like if I went out on Friday or Saturday, Sunday, it was study day. And I did nothing but study so I could just keep up with everything.
Yeah. We're just making sure that everybody knows that you did actually study at some point
I think
to get where you are.
Yes. My brother didn't take me there. Survived. No flashing. No.
Yeah. Is that where you, because I know you love food. So is that where you came into it, or did you always love it?
Yes. Our culture, Gullah Geechee culture, which actually I wore the shirt today, which is interesting. So the Gullah Geechee culture is definitely known for a lot of staples when it comes to certain food.
Okay.
So like red rice or okra and shrimp, things like that. And the silver. And I just remember watching my mom cook all these dishes all the time. And then, of course, with you for being on the water, a lot of seafood dishes as well.
Yeah.
So it was just food constantly around me that was just good, seasoned. So going from that and then to New Orleans, it's like food everywhere. So I've been always had a love for those different dishes, seasoned differently, things like that. And I even notice how when I go to certain restaurants that may say red rice, but they may use like andouille sausage, which is more Cajun thing.
Okay.
I'm like, no. I said, we have red rice, but with just plain sausage, but then they have their andouille sausage to go with like gumbo. It's more spicy, so it's different.
I think it's so interesting what you can learn about history, about culture, about people, and also just about global migration, just like food. It's just fascinating because I think for Gullah Geechee, for Cajun, Creole, from what I understand, by no means an expert, people like it really comes from Africa and from the forced migration. Another topic in itself. And when you were growing up in Beaufort and when you were in Louisiana, like, how did you understand the history of that area? Because the Gullah Geechee is such a unique part of that region. And was that like a big part of your life growing up, or was it just in the air and you're like, this is me? Yeah.
No, that was it. It was just me. Because when I got there, they're very different, especially even in the accent. And then so people would recognize my accent, and I didn't think I had one until I got there, and people would notice the difference and recognize that and bring it out. But I don't know, it was just always something that was just there, and it's always been me. And interestingly, my sister is part Gullah, part Creole, because her father is from that region. So she's very mixed up. She starts talking sometimes. But yeah, I think it's just the culture is just so instilled and embedded in people in those regions, especially down in the South, from where people have come from. And like you mentioned, a lot of the Gullah Geechee culture did come from West Africa, maybe a little bit more east of that. But a lot of those cultures were brought over as well. A lot of those dishes, so red rice that we eat comes from the jollof rice from Africa. It's just a lot of those things that we still hold on to. And the thing that I did not realize until I watched, I think, a special on TV one time was that the Gullah Geechee culture is still the oldest and still the most active culture that is holding on to the traditions of Africa to this day. And I'm like, wow, I thought there were others like it, but they're like actively still holding on to those traditions and still passing them on. And I love that. And even my daughter, she's like, Mama, can you teach me that? And it's interesting because like how I'm talking to you now, very different from when I'm talking to my kids or family at home. And people ask me, can you speak? I'm like, no, it's not like a language you can just switch over to. It's just an essence.
Sure.
Once you get around family and familiarity, it just comes out.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. I love that. One of the things I love hearing that about the Gullah Geechee culture, about like this influence and this tradition and this passion for keeping that alive and for making that part of the community is still there. So I think that's just so cool. I love that. And one of the things I wanted to ask you about, so like this whole idea of influence and how you become the person that you are and who helped you with that. It sounds like your grandparents on both sides were strong influences. But the idea of role models as a general idea, but also as a specific force or a specific influence in your life, what comes to mind?
Definitely both sets of grandparents were amazing. But my grandfather on my mother's side, and then of course my mom, I think I just love the formula and the perseverance of my grandfather. He was born, what was it, 1916. And interestingly enough, my great grandmother, my mom's grandmother, lived in the same yard as my grandparents. So I was actually able to talk with her a lot when I was little. And she was born in 1903. But just to see and hear some of the stories of things that they dealt with in life, especially in that era of life, and being Black in the South, you're like, whoo, you almost feel like you have to be strong and you have to persevere, you have to push through, stay motivated, because it just felt like if you did anything less would be a disservice to them for what they have gone through and what they've done to get you where you are. So they were definitely just influences just for that reason alone. But to know that my granddad had a condition where it was ankylosing spondylitis. Okay. He couldn't turn his head or bend his back from his late 20s up until he passed, which was at 91. So he didn't really drive. So he walked everywhere. But for him to make a living the way he did, support 11 children, or 9 because 2 are still born, but 11, but support 9 kids. My mom, she told me how strong he was in moments when you would think he would just fall and drop, give up, and he just never did. And just to see that in him and to know that's what he was all about, again, would be a disservice to not do something like him. And then my mom was a teacher for 30 years. And she was teacher of the year like 4 or 5 years in a row for some of her math concepts and stuff, which I'm so glad she taught me. She waited like statements, but she was married and divorced 3 times. But to see her pick herself up each time and just keep going from my sister and me, to see that strength was amazing. And then to never show it on the outside, which I don't know if that's a good thing for women because you sometimes hold all there. But I saw the strength in her. I saw the push, the drive that she had. And I remember maybe in middle school, a project that we had to do in English class of who has been the biggest influence in your life. And I remember typing on that big Apple computer with that paper with the little buttons, and taking it out the printer, and reading it to her and just watching her cry because it was like, Mom, you're my biggest influence, and just watching you and how you are so amazing and strong each day, and just seeing her and my grandparents are just amazing. So I just felt like I couldn't do anything less than what they had.
Oh,
they definitely were my influences.
I love that. It's so amazing. One of the other conversations I had with Dr. Sandra Glahn, she was one of my professors in seminary, and she's doing a project called the Visual Gallery. It's an online gallery of women in early Christian history. She's trying to make them visible so that we can see who they were. We can see that they were a part of the early church. And we can see that just as much as the male figures that are often talked about and who do the theology, we can see that it was the women also. And I remember her saying visibility matters, representation matters. And it's the people that you see in so many, for like your grandfather and your mom, so many different circumstances. I'm sure you saw them terrible times, wonderful times, everything in between. And to see them continuing that resilience, it's just that's an amazing gift. Yeah.
I think because so much of what we see with this generation now, I know we get frustrated because kids are like dependent on social media and they're not socializing as much with people, their friends. And we often think, like, why aren't they like us? Like, why are they doing these things? And I think because they're not getting the same that we got, the conversations, the ocular proof of parents working hard and then coming home and discussing with them some of the issues that they may have. And I think sometimes there's such a disconnect between the parents and the kids now. Because parents, I know they're busy. They're working all the time. So it's not that close, that relationship that the kids need to have. So they can see this is what my mom or dad is doing. And so we go day to day with just working, kids get up, go to school, and then you come home, eat dinner, go to bed, and start all over again. And we're not getting that connection. And I think that's what helped with me because I talk with my grandparents a lot. Help my mom a lot. because there wasn't social media. There wasn't the phone that occupied my time.
Yeah.
I think if we can get that connection back, that is what will allow kids to see what we're going, the resilience that is needed, the motivation that is needed. Those are the things that I think are missing.
Yeah.
And if we get back to that, that would help quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know you have daughters as well. Are they curious about those cross-generational conversations?
Yeah. Even if they weren't, they would have get. And then because I am my grandmother and my mom. We're all wrapped in here.
Yeah.
And they get it. They are a bit, but because I feel like whatever they did, it worked. What's that? Why change?
Yeah. I'm very attentive. Yeah.
Can't find kids the same. They're like, "But mommy, why?" Like, it works. And
Yeah.
yeah. And there's no talking back. But no, I love one that they are very interested in the Gullah Geechee culture, even though they were born here in Charlotte.
Okay.
And we do, of course, go home often.
Sure.
And so they definitely love to hear the dialect. They love the food. They love the traditions at home. So that is one thing that I want to make sure that they understand and continue to pass on to their kids if they decide to have them.
Yeah.
And then I think it's just, even when I go through my hard times, like my mother did or my grandparents did, and when they're younger, of course, you don't want to show them all of that. But then now that my girls are 13 and 15, it's, you know what? They need to see that life can sometimes have a little bump here and there. You might be a little stressed out, a little depressed, and it's okay. But then I show them, like, you got to get up from it. Right? Move, and you don't let it hold you down. Yeah, cry out. Sit in the closet, pray about it, do what you got to do. Yeah, keep right on up. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah.
And so they definitely see it. They can see when I'm tired or I'm just like drained. And they're like, this week, my youngest, "Mommy, you look tired." I'm like, "Okay, thank you." And so she's like, "So how about when you finish paying everything off, we take a vacation?" I'm like, "That's going to take a while, but."
Right. And I'm thought.
Yeah, but just for her to see that I was tired and to recognize it and then say, "Here's a solution. What if you do this?" So I'm wanting to understand that, yes, you might have those days where you're just drained.
Yeah.
But calm down, take a breather, rest, find the solution, and you just keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. Both of my grandfathers died when I was an infant, so I never knew them.
Oh.
And one grandmother she lived at a distance, so I would see her periodically growing up. But when we were still in Northern Virginia, she moved with her daughter, North Dakota.
Yeah.
I saw her once in North Dakota, and then she moved briefly to Northern Virginia, like for a year or two before she died.
Oh.
And I was probably early teen at that point. And then other grandmother, she died not too long after we moved to Charlotte, but not a close relationship. So all of that to say, that's one of the things that I do wish I had more conversations with them, because my grandmother that passed away when we moved down here, I think she was only 99. She said she was 100. We'll give it to her. Had popcorn.
She was like 99 3/4.
Yeah. Just to realize, to look at her birth year, to look at when she died, and to realize the scope of changes that she saw in the world in a century.
Yeah.
And she grew up in the northern panhandle of West Virginia. So very different life. I think it was either her birth or one of her siblings' birth where the doctor showed up on horseback drunk to deliver. Yeah. Took times. Yeah. But yeah, the older I get, the more I miss the opportunity to have those conversations with family and all that. So I think that's so cool.
Yeah. And it's interesting you say that, because even though I had conversations with my grandparents, I wish I had more in-depth conversations. Like, we had good ones.
Yeah.
But a lot of things were taboo. Score.
Okay.
I'm not supposed to question this or that.
Yeah.
But then as I got older, I'm like, I should just ask them. And even if they got mad, just still ask. Now, my grandpa, I could ask him anything.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He let it spill. My grandma, it's on my mom's side, my grandma, that was more of a taboo. You can't really talk about this kind of thing. But as I got into high school, like pushed down a little bit and asked certain things, she opened up a little bit too.
Yeah.
But Yeah, there are so many things that I wish I still was able to ask them, just to see them become nothing. But definitely, I understand the span of time, with my great grandma being born in 1903.
Yeah.
And I forgot when she passed. I think maybe 97, 98.
Okay.
When she may have passed. And that's like when the cell phone kind of started coming around and stuff. So to see her face when a cell phone was brought around, she's like, well, where's that thing? And even now, when I ride around and I have the Google Maps on and it's turn right on Archdale or turn whatever. And I always imagine my granddad sitting on the side and wondering, hey, what's that noise? Like, who's taking the car? I would love to see.
Yeah.
But then for that age and how long they have lived, because we have some good longevity. I have a great aunt she got 105. But for them to see the presidencies that we've had, or to see the TV come about, for radio to black and white TV to color TV, to the flat screen TV,
Streaming TV.
I remember my grandpa came to my house. My mom had just gotten that huge 50-inch, and there was a huge field. It was flat screen, and my grandpa was like, "What is this thing?" Like it was a movie,
Yeah.
But just to see, knowing that he went from that little brown radio in the room to the flat screen, and I would love to have those conversations with them now. We think about this. Awesome.
Yeah. Someday in eternity, we'll get to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you think that perseverance, your grandfather having that scrap metal business, your other grandparents having the ballpark, your mom, like that resilience and that perseverance, is that what do you feel like that was a huge factor in because you own your own business. You are a woman-owned, minority-owned business. Do you feel like that was part of your decision, or was that just always what you were going to do, or was that like a choice you made?
I think it was always knowing I was going to
Gotcha.
have my own business. It wasn't quite solidified until I was working in a high school job where I had to go and organize the albums and the tapes in the store, because it was like a bookstore. And they had a music store right next to it.
Okay.
And I just remember being in there and I'm organizing this stuff. And I guess the guy might have been the manager or whatever, not the owner, because the owners were amazing. But one guy that managed it, my name was Kandyce, and he called me Candy. And I was like, oh, for some reason I just hate being called Candy. Yeah. And he did. I was like, I don't want to work for anyone that's going to call me Candy. And it was the craziest reason as to why somebody wants to work for themselves. I just kept thinking, I want to be called Candy. And I just knew, like, you know what? I'm going to call. So I can make sure people call me.
Yeah.
But then again, yes, watching my granddad not work for anyone all those years and just do his own thing and the flexibility that he had, I love that, because I remember coming home, middle school, warming up some lasagna, and some of the grease spilled out in the oven and it caught fire. And I called my mom, and she flew from school so much till she ended up with a flat tire, like turning into the driveway. And by that time she got home, I'd already put it out, but her heart had dropped and stopped. And I kept thinking, crap, I just made my mom leave her job. Blah, fired. So just thinking about those things, I'm like, well, I have my own job. I could get to my kids when I need to. I wouldn't have to rush or whatever. I just thought about things like that. It's crazy how all that kind of, about. But those are the little things I would think about. And I kept saying, I want to have the flexibility to leave a job if I need to, change my hours if I need to, increase my income if I need to, just all those things.
Yeah. And I love that, because I think it's so hard to see successful businesses.
Okay.
And so I just love seeing successful entrepreneurship. And to me, what it looks like is you run a business. Because when I first started coming to you as a chiropractor, you had just started. You were always working in the field, but you were filling in a lot of places. And so to see you just moving from like this one small little room to having your own office and to expanding that practice and expanding your services as well, it's just been a really neat evolution to see that. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, this is an enjoy. And have your days be like, woo, I want to keep doing this. But literally every time I think about not wanting to do it, or I try not to say it out loud, I do think about my grandfather because he went 70-something years with a condition that could have just kept you down.
Yeah.
And he didn't. He never gave up. And even when he got to one of his worst points in life, and this is like years ago, he did drink. I remember him telling himself, God, strike me down if I don't ever put this drink down, if I ever put it to my lips again. And stopped. And just to know that somebody has that much conviction in their heart to do something.
Yeah.
And so I just feel like I don't have the right to give up. And he didn't even have half the resources that I have.
Yeah.
So what do I have to give up just because I'm tired?
Yeah.
I'm sure he was tired.
Sure.
But he didn't, because if he did give up, I wouldn't be here. I think about him as soon as I have that inclination to want to say, get out of it.
Yeah.
He got out of it. Just in fact, like my muscle just hurt.
Right.
And mine.
Yeah. I love that. That's such an amazing legacy.
Yeah, he was awesome. Yeah, so awesome until that my female daughter has his middle name. Yeah. Oh, her middle name is his first name. Yeah, I love that. Yeah,
I love that. Name is what you make it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna carry him on as much as I can. Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah.
2 more questions. First question: what has been the most helpful thing for you?
It's interesting because it's like you don't think about how blessed you are until you start talking about it out loud. So that has been the most interesting because it's been a very stressful 2024. I'm glad 2025 is here and I'm ready to see some changes with things.
Yeah.
But sometimes I get down and out on myself. I'm like, ugh. But this conversation has made me realize, you know what? Yeah, it was stressful, but I'm still blessed in it all.
Yeah. Love that. And then the last question, very important question. What's the story of the best or the worst taco that you've ever had? We can be taco adjacent.
Okay, so I have 2 mini stories.
Okay.
Okay, so it's not a taco, but it was burrito, yeah. In New Orleans, a place called Coco Pelli's, which is no longer there. But it was near Audubon Park, which is, I think, across from Loyola in Tulane, I think.
Okay.
But down the street from Xavier, where I went. Coco Pelli's was amazing because I had never seen burrito that was at least 12 inches long almost. And it was just huge. And the amount of toppings and meat that was put into that bad boy. I think I got for one burrito for 2.5 days. It was insane.
Yeah.
And then more recently here in Charlotte, there is a food truck and, oh gosh, I can't think of their name. I want to say it's Tacos Dos Carnales, I think. Like they're on South Boulevard, and I don't know, I think Jack may have told me, my friend Jack told me about them, but they have the best seasoned tacos, and I could have like my last $5 and I'm going to spend the last $5 with them because it is so good.
Okay. And I might need you to find out the location. Yeah.
There's one, I mean, it says steak and potatoes, but I feel like it's like little cut French fries or whatever in there.
Yeah.
But it has the cilantro and the grilled onions and the lime juice all in it. Oh, so yeah, so those are mine.
Yes. I always get so hungry because I asked every guest this question. And I've gotten tacos in Mexico. I've gotten tacos somewhere in Texas. I've gotten tacos somewhere in Massachusetts. And I'm like, but I can't hit any of those. So now I need to get.
Gotta try.
Kandyce, thank you so much. This has been an absolute delight.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm going to remember how blessed I am now.
Yeah. Awesome. For me, the subtitle of my podcast.
There you go. Just sort of talk with me and get blessed. I mean, comment. Thank you. I appreciate it. This was pretty.
Thank you so much for spending time with us today. I hope you found something that resonated with you and that helps you become more hopeful, creative, and wise in your own life. Please share this with someone who you think would love this conversation, and like, subscribe, and leave a comment or a review to boost the show. Shalom.